Good morning, and welcome to Hey, great. Let's try that again. Good morning, and welcome to First Unitarian Church. We're going to begin this morning by singing a favorite of mine, 347, Gather the Spirit. Please rise if you are able.
Good morning, everyone. Please be seated. Welcome, all of you, here to First Unitarian Church. We are in Portland, Oregon, and in this congregation, we strive together to build the beloved community and to nurture the individual spirit. Welcome all gathered here this morning. Welcome all of you joining us online today. I'd like to make a couple special welcomes this morning. The first is to welcome back Mark Slagers, our Minister of Music Emeritus. For those of you who are newer to the church, Mark directed our wonderful music program for 39 years before he retired in 2016. Mark will be directing our summer choir for the next 3 Sundays. Mark, it's so good to have you back. And I'm delighted to introduce today our new intern minister, Eli Poor. Eli arrived in Portland from Texas. Eli arrived in Portland just a few days ago from their native Texas. Eli will preach for the first time next Sunday and will serve here during the next church year. Eli, it's good to have you among us and so glad that you'll be part of our ministry team this year. Welcome to Portland. After the service, you're invited to join fellow congregants for a social hour. To join virtually, you'll see a QR code after the service, and to join in person, find your way down to Fuller Hall. That's just below this sanctuary. Also today, after the service, I'll be offering an introduction to our church and to Unitarian Universalism. That will be on Zoom, and you can find a registration link after the service in the slides. As summer winds down, we are preparing to begin a new church year that will begin on September the 11th. That's 3 weeks from now. Reverend Allison Miller, our new senior minister, will be in the pulpit that Sunday. And please note that our service time, including our religious education program for children and youth, will begin at 10:30 starting that Sunday, 10:30 on September 11th. More on plans for a new and exciting church year to come. But one special invitation to you this morning, and that's an invitation to teach our young people this fall. Classes for all ages, preschool through high school, will be back in person in September, and we're in need of volunteers to journey alongside our young people, co-leading with other volunteers. We have flexible options for balancing teaching with attending worship services and are looking for volunteers who can commit to teaching at least 2 Sundays a month. We offer training and support. Previous experience with children is helpful but not required. If you've never volunteered in our learning community previously and are considering returning for this year, we hope that you will. Most people who have done this in the past will tell you that the rewards far outweigh the challenges with it. So I hope you'll seriously consider teaching our young people. It's a great blessing for them and I think for you. You can see our e-news for details and reach out to Cassandra Sheffman, our Director of Family Ministries. So once again, welcome everyone on this summer morning. Let's take a moment now and greet our neighbors here together and online. Eli will light the chalice on our chancel this morning. And if you're at home, I encourage you, if you have one, to light a candle or chalice as well. We are Unitarian Universalists. We light this chalice in faith, in hope, and in love. Words for our call to worship this morning come from Frederick Buechner, a writer and theologian who died this past week at the age of 96. Buechner's words: "Listen to your life. See it for the fathomless mystery it is, in the boredom and pain of it, no less than in the excitement and gladness. Touch, taste, smell your way to the holy and hidden heart of it, because in the last analysis, all moments are key moments, and life itself is grace." Good people, we come together on this day to journey together, to bear witness to all the moments of our lives, that we might find the way in the midst of all the beauty and all the brokenness of life, and through it all, too, know moments of grace. Come now and let us worship together. Please join me as we sing together, "Come Down, O Love Divine." It's by Francisco Alarcón, and it's entitled, "May Our Ears Hear." May our ears hear what nobody wants to hear. May our eyes see what everyone wants to hide. May our mouths speak our true faces and hearts. May our arms be branches that give shade and joy. Let us be a drizzle, a sudden storm. Let us get wet in the rain. Let us be the key, the hand, the door, the kick, the ball, the road. Let us arrive as children to this huge playground, the universe. Let's sing together now our doxology, Spirit of Life. Our story for all ages today is entitled The Skin You Live In, written by Michael Tyler and illustrated by David Lee Sisko. Hey, look at your skin, the wonderful skin you live in, the skin you're all day in, the skin that you play in, the skin that you snuggle in, cuddle up, lay in, the skin that you beam in, the skin that you scream in, the skin that you dream about eating ice cream in, the skin you have fun in, the skin that you run in, the skin that you hop, skip, and jump in the sun in, the skin you laugh in, the skin that you cry in, the skin that you look to the sky and ask, why? In. It's baby-born new skin, and your family too skin, and glows when it shows that it knows we love you skin. It's skin, it's face the rain bold skin, and snow angel cold skin, and warm again, let it in, sunshine behold skin. It's trembling fright skin, and cringes at night skin, but turn off the lights to make birthday cake bright skin. It's whatever you do skin, be happy it's you skin, you can't live without it, I'm glad it's me too skin. And look at the shades it comes in, the shades of your colorful skin. Your coffee and cream skin, your warm cocoa dream skin, your chocolate chip double dip sundae supreme skin, your marshmallow treat skin, your sponge sugar sweet skin. What's the next one? Sorry. Your pumpkin pie slice skin, your caramel corn rice skin, your toffee-wrapped, ginger-snapped cinnamon spice skin, your butterscotch gold skin, your lemon tart bold skin, your mountain-high apple pie cookie dough rolled skin. Now, once again, look at your skin, and the skin all people live in. It's not tall skin or short skin, or best in the sport skin, or fat skin or thin skin, you lose and I win skin, nor sad skin or mad skin, you're naturally bad skin, I'm rich and you're poor and you'll never have more skin. It's not dumb skin or smart skin or keep us apart skin or weak skin or strong skin, I'm right and you're wrong skin, nor she skin nor he skin, you're better than me skin, I'm lesser than you skin, I'm me against you skin. It's not any of this, 'cause you're more than you seem. You are all that you think and you hope and you dream. You're a gifted creation with imagination. You're a new day desire to reach even higher. You're the feelings that start from down deep in your heart. You're the pride and the joy inside each girl and boy. So whenever you look at your beautiful skin, from your wiggling toes to your giggling grin, think how lucky you are that the skin you live in so beautifully holds the you who's within. And like flowers in the fields that make wonderful views, when you stand side by side in our wonderful hues, we all make a beauty so wonderfully true. We are special and different, and just the same, too. So ends our story, and thanks for the help.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Today's shared offering, we're going to be sharing our plate with Trust, transgender religious professionals, professional Unitarian Universalists together. Trust was born out of a commitment to the gifts, safety, liberation, and leadership of transgender people, and envisions a spiritual awakening that transforms Unitarian Universalism through worship, pastoral care, theology, education, and community, to the end that trans religious professionals and their ministries are thriving, and a new culture of solidarity and common purpose among Unitarian Universalists committed to countering intersecting oppressions is flourishing. Our gifts through today's collection will support the work of this important UU organization. If you'd like to give to our offering today, and you're watching online, look for the QR code or find the Donate Now button on Boxcast. If you're in person, you can find that QR code in the yellow slip of paper and the chair holders around you. And if you'd like to donate cash or check, please find an usher after the service. We make space each week in our service to name the concerns of community life.
Now receive the offering.
Oh, okay. Oh, now we will receive the offering. right. Thank you all for your graciousness as we feel our way through this morning. We make space each week in our service to name the concerns of community life. We are a caring community, and pastoral support happens in a number of ways. Through our ministers and through a dedicated team of lay ministers who offer one-on-one support, as well as facilitating small groups where congregants can offer support to one another. They also hold intentions in prayer each week. If you are here in person, you can light a candle of intention in one of our galleries and write down your prayer intention. And online, you can send an intention to prayer at firstunitarianportland.org. This week, I'm sorry to report that member Donna Richards died this past Tuesday, 8/16, of cancer, at home surrounded by loved ones, pain and anxiety-free. She leaves behind 2 daughters, 4 grandchildren, and the countless friends and strangers who she has forever impacted. Those friends include members of our Committee on Hunger and Homelessness group here at the church. Donna was born in Rochester, New York, although she lived most of her life here in the Pacific Northwest. She raised a family here in Portland, as well as a successful entertainment booking agency. She was quick to listen with empathy, but just as quick to disarm you with her sharp wit and dark humor. A family friend whom she worked with for 30 years said it best. She was smart, she was funny, she was quirky and neurotic in a delightful kind of way, and she had an ocean of integrity in an industry full of sharks. We hold her family at this time of loss. Please join me now in the spirit of prayer. God of many names, Spirit of life and love and boundless compassion, it's easy sometimes to be overwhelmed by the suffering of this world. There's so much to be fearful of and so much to grieve. All around us, it seems, there's loss and hate and division and pain. In times of sorrow, when we are feeling lost, help us recall that we are connected deeply to one another, and that our souls and the souls of all beings dwell ultimately together with you and as you in a place of perfect peace, our collective union, the embodiment of the great mystery, that holy stillness which dwells at the center of all. God of love and peace and boundless compassion, impart in us a love for one another, which you have gifted as the highest rule over and over again through the wise words of many prophets in countless traditions across place and time. May we remember in times of overwhelming doubt and pain our deep connection to one another and to your transcendent universal spirit as we work to relieve the suffering that we encounter in this world wherever we might find it. And in these endeavors, which take place amidst and among our daily lives, grant to us resilience and patience, peace and transformation, so that in our words, actions, and states of being, we draw ever closer to that highest holy love that we find in beloved community. In the name of all that is whole and holy, amen, amen, and blessed be. Please join me in silence for a time as we recall a moment when we felt wholly and completely held and loved. Please join me now in hymn 1048, Ubi Caritas. Our reading today comes from Maya Angelou and is entitled Reaping What We Sow. There is an immutable life principle with which many people will quarrel. Although nature has proven season in and season out that if the thing that is planted bears at all, it will yield more of itself, there are those who seem certain that if they plant tomato seeds at harvest time, they can reap onions. Too many times for comfort, I have expected to reap good when I know I have sown evil. My lame excuse is that I have not always known that actions can only reproduce themselves, or rather, I have not allowed myself to be aware of that knowledge. Now, after years of observation and enough courage to admit what I have observed, I try to plant peace if I do not want discord. I try to plant loyalty and honesty if I want to avoid betrayal and lies. Of course, there is no absolute assurance that those things I plant will always fall upon arable land and will take root and grow, nor can I know if another cultivator did not leave contrary seeds before I arrived. I do know, however, that if I leave little to chance, if I'm careful about the kinds of seeds that I plant, about their potency and nature, I can, within reason, trust my expectations.
This summer, our worship services have explored our Unitarian Universalist 7 principles, one principle for each of the last several Sundays. This has felt like a good and appropriate theme, especially at this particular moment in history. In May of 2021, this congregation became one of over 160 Unitarian Universalist congregations and institutions to adopt what is called an 8th principle, which would make our commitment explicit to be a diverse, multicultural, and anti-racist faith. And indeed, this 8th principle proposal is part of a larger process of review to re-articulate the core principles of our faith tradition. So as we look forward, it might also be good to look at how it is we got to where we are. So today I'd like to conclude this summer's exploration with some reflections on those principles as we've known them and how they've come to be, and to ask what it might mean for us as a faith looking forward, as individuals and also as a community. But before we get too far along, I have to make a confession about those 7 principles. I've been really good at remembering the first one, about the inherent worth and dignity of all people, and the 7th one, about the interdependent web of existence of which we are a part. But all those in the middle, those, I have to admit, I've not always been good at remembering. And of course, I'm a minister, so I should. But I haven't always done such a good job. Now, if you've also had trouble remembering some or all of them, I hope this might serve as an invitation to explore those principles, no matter how many you're able to call to mind. So as we begin today, I'd like to invite us to say together our 7 Unitarian Universalist principles. Will you join me? We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another, and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. And please join in what would be our 8th principle as well. We covenant to affirm and promote journeying toward spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. Thank you. So let's begin this morning with a little history. Those principles that we just shared together, except of course for the 8th, date back to 1985, and for at least several decades have been an important part of how it is we talk about our Unitarian Universalist faith tradition. But before those principles, there were another set of principles that date all the way back to the early 1960s. We'll get to those in a moment. Now, it was in the 1950s and early 60s when our present denomination was coming into being with the merger of the Unitarians and the Universalists. At that time, they were considered the 2 most liberal denominations around, and they were both declining in terms of membership and influence. So through the 1940s and 50s, they started doing more things collaboratively. But even as they had many things in common, each came to what they believed in different ways. Now, the Universalists centered their theology on a God of love, that everyone eventually would find themselves reconciled with God in heaven, that loving God would not damn anyone to eternity, And in its day, that was a really radical theology. And in practice, it should be said that that meant that the task at hand was to create heaven here on earth. That in fact, if we did living God's charge to us, that heaven, if you will, wasn't as important as the here and the now. Our Unitarian ancestors focused a lot on Jesus in the early days. In fact, the name Unitarian was first used by opponents of our ancestors as being opposed to Trinitarians, a belief in the Trinity of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. They saw Jesus not as divine, but as this extraordinary person, a kind of super teacher, if you will, that we could all strive to emulate. For them, it was about living lives that strive to live out those teachings of Jesus. And through the decades, those beliefs evolved. With the Transcendentalists, you've maybe heard of them, people like Ralph Waldo Emerson and Margaret Fuller. They articulated a belief that we could experience God directly, and we didn't need an intermediary of a minister or some other teacher. And in those decades that led up to the merger, the dominant theology on our Unitarian family side was humanism, that through reason and science, humans were able to articulate what it was that was most important. They didn't need a divine being to help them get there. So as those Unitarian and Universalists explored coming together, there was a need to articulate what this new denomination was about and what its core beliefs would be. And that was no easy task. Now, after much process and debate, a core set of principles were agreed upon, and here's what they were. Why don't you read these with me as well? In accordance with these principles, the members of the Unitarian Universalist Association, dedicated to the principles of a free faith, unite in seeking to strengthen one another in a free and disciplined search for truth as the foundation of our religious fellowship, to cherish and spread the universal truths taught by the great prophets and teachers of humanity in every age and tradition, immemorially summarized in the Judeo-Christian heritage as love to God and love to man, to affirm, defend, and promote the supreme worth of every human personality, the dignity of man, and the use of the democratic method in human relationships, to implement our vision of one world by striving for a world of community founded on the ideals of brotherhood, justice, and peace, to serve the needs of member churches and fellowships, to organize new churches and fellowships, and to extend and strengthen liberal religion, to encourage cooperation with men of goodwill in every land. Now, it took a lot of negotiating to come up with those. Word is that the whole process came pretty close to collapsing at that time of merger, but they did manage to negotiate those principles that we just read, and they would guide our faith for some 25 years. And looking back over 60 years later, it's both easy to see the roots of our more current principles, often with many more words, but also to see who specifically was left out. The gendered language in particular is pretty hard to read today. Now, it will not come as a surprise that in the late 1970s, more and more voices began asking for changes in those principles, and it was women in particular who asked that language may include them. That began another long process that resulted in the principles that we've known since 1985. Now, that came after several years and a lot of versions that they came into being. And I think the process of versions and editing, it can be easy to forget that over time. It can seem as those principles just emerged as some whole articulated piece. But in fact, editing something by committee is hardly ever an easy process. It takes time and intention. Now, all of this, I think, changes in time, changes in language, points to what we call the living tradition of our faith. That means that revelation is not sealed and that our faith and belief are not static things. Just as we are living and growing beings, so it is with our spiritual lives. How we see the world today, how it is we articulate what is most important, may well change with time, or at least the language we'd use may change. We come together not stating a creed together as a statement of belief, but we come together in covenant, making a set of promises to journey together. It's that covenant that allows us to change and grow with time. So where were you in 1985? If you were born yet in 1985. Now, I was a senior in college back then, and I have to say it feels like a long, long time ago. And no matter our age, how is it that we name what is most important to us at any chapter of our life? How is it that we want to live our lives? I think that all of this brings us to a core part of what it means to be a Unitarian Universalist. Now, it's easy to joke that as UUs, we can believe anything that we want. Well, yes, sort of. But in fact, there comes a responsibility with being a Unitarian Universalist, that it's up to us to decide what we believe. It means that we're asked to be present to the times that we are on and what it is that's being asked of us as individuals and as a faith community, to discern what is most important. And it means asking, I think, who is in our circle of concern, and maybe the more even difficult question of who has been left out of that circle of concern. That brings us to our present time. Last year, our congregation did pass that 8th principle, and now a year later, over 160 congregations and UU institutions have adopted it. Like those changes that have been initiated by our faith several decades ago, this 8th principle in our faith began with people of color in our movement, asking for that clear commitment and articulation for us as a faith tradition to be anti-racist and to be multicultural. For some, that is a statement that has been long in coming. For others, especially those of us that have been in positions of privilege, it's taken quite a bit longer to recognize. And it asks something more as well of us, I think, that accountability be part of the commitment we make to this new principle. Some of those earlier principles, it has been said, were lax when it came to accountability. But that accountability piece is important, and I know this congregation, as well as our larger movement, we're trying to figure out just what exactly that will look like. As congregations have passed the 8th principle, a process is already underway for us as an association for changes in our principles. It's work on what is called the Article 2 of the section, that's the section of the UUA bylaws that actually spells out and articulate those principles. If you followed the work of the General Assembly that was here in Portland earlier this summer, you know that that was a major focus and will continue to be. The Commission exploring that work is tasked with proposing a new set of principles for our faith, and they're asking us to look with vision and imagination of what those principles should look like for this present time. Articulating principles and talking about what it is we believe sometimes can feel boring and maybe even bureaucratic sometimes. But that work and all that process points to something deeper, something that is life-saving, something that helps us, hopefully, to understand how it is we are part of something larger, how all of us are part of some larger whole. Even when what we see around us is division and separation, even when we see around us so much that could lead us to despair, that we can imagine principles that would offer us an imagination of how it is we might be called to live in this day and time. I don't know about you, but living through this global pandemic these years, living through the call for Black lives that's broken through for many of us as it hasn't had before, with an ever-increasing awareness of global warming and just how interconnected our lives and this earth really are, well, that awareness of how we are interdependent keeps being brought home. And for those of us in positions of privilege because of our race or class or economic status, those of us who, because of that privilege, maybe really haven't had to pay so much attention, we're getting a loud and clear invitation to pay attention. That's the recognition that the individual really can't be separated from the recognition of this life that we all share together. With power and privilege does come responsibility. With awareness, too, comes responsibility. And what we know more and more than anything else is just how interdependent our lives really are. There are many questions about how, what, and how those principles will be moving forward. There's more than a few drafts before some new iteration will come into being. But the through line of that is that living tradition that connects us to what has been and connects us to what will be, that asks us what is most important and how is it that we want to live. Words again from our responsive reading by Francisco Alacon. May our ears hear what nobody wants to hear. May our eyes see what everyone wants to hide. May our mouths speak our true faces and hearts. May our arms be branches that give shade and joy. Let us be a drizzle, a sudden storm. Let us get wet in the rain. Let us be the key, the hand, the door, the kick, the ball, the road. Let us arrive as children to this huge playground, the universe. Amen. Will you pray with me now? Spirit of life and of love, God of many names and no name at all, hear our prayers. Be with us, Spirit, as we find our way in this complicated world. Open our hearts to what it is we need to learn. Grant us courage to live the lives we're called to live. And help us to always move with humility, Spirit, to recognize what we know, yes, but also all that is to be revealed. Through it all, Spirit, remind us that we never, ever journey alone. Amen. Let's join together now in our closing hymn, There's a River Flowing in My Soul. you go from this place today, live with integrity, live with intention, live in joy, and finally, friends, live in love. This is the day we've been given. Let us rejoice in it and be glad. Go in peace. Practice love. Amen.